There are dozens of different ways to encounter Pokémon. From the random encounters of Red and Blue to the raids of the Switch era, a surprising amount of methods are available. Today I'll be using every method found in Pokémon Black 2 to build a team and take on the gym challenge under the hardcore Nuzlocke rule set. Game Freak was pretty experimental with the Gen 5 games, so some of these get weird. But we're starting off with a cozy and familiar encounter type, the Gift Pokémon. Gifts are plentiful in just about every Pokémon game, so there's an argument to be made to delay the encounter for a later gift, but honestly, I'm in the mood to use an Oshawott. And I didn't feel like playing Legends Arceus. But Goddard is going to be very lonely on his own. And getting past the early game of Black 2's challenge mode is a headache in solo runs. I want to get another teammate on board, but I don't want to waste my random encounter just yet. Instead, we're going to get weird. When Black 2 released, it was not a 3DS game. And it still isn't. So to make up for that, the Pokemon Dream Radar was released on the same day. This was on the 3DS and kind of a game. You would primarily use this app to encounter the Therian forms of Thundurus, Tornadus, and Landorus, but you could also encounter other Pokemon leading up to them. I was going to use my actual 3DS for this, but my microSD card died. PSA, back up your microSD card. I lost everything. After spending a few hours finagling the gyro controls on my new Super Nintendo 3DS XXL, the Dream Radar's first scan was a Munna. Kinda boring, I could have gotten a Drifloon or even a Sigilif, but I think Munna is the guaranteed tutorial mon. Adamant? Okay, now I'm upset. But I guess I can't be too upset, because any addition is nice. Again, we're playing on challenge mode, so I'll use any help I could get. Goddard is still my lead, as Charon's Patrat has Bite for coverage. He also has Detect, so I figured it'd be a smart move to lead with Focus Energy. But it turns out, not so much. At the very least, a plus special attack nature means that a single crit would take out 2/3 of Patrat's HP and make up for lost time. But it turns out that we're in a speed tie, and Goddard takes tons of damage to proc an early use of our Oranberry. Drats. Well again, one crit would be more than enough to keep us in the fight, and even though Charon heals, that remains to be true. We just gotta keep the water guns going and... Oh, well there's the crit I was looking for. You know, in Gen 1, Focus Energy had the reverse effect and made crits impossible. I think that's a Gen 5 thing too, actually. I'm not making it much further with only a Munna, so attempt 1 is called then and there. And when I enter the Dream Radar again, we get Munna again. Technically, I could skip this tutorial encounter since it is staged, but I'm just gonna keep the Munna for now. These are the new stats of my Pokemon in attempt 2, and not much has changed. This time I'm instead leading with Draper, to yawn the Patrat right away. We're risking huge bite damage and a flinch, but as long as we get the yawn off, Goddard could switch in mostly for free. Patrat falls asleep and he actually doesn't wake up. Goddard is modest this time, so the water guns are noticeably stronger. Not quite strong enough to make a difference, but enough to make me smile a little bit. Lillipup switches in, and while it is the scariest mon, it's just what I wanted. Challenge mode improves the trainer AI and movesets, and many boss Pokemon like this one have held items. But Goddard is at full HP and still holding the Oranberry. We couldn't be more prepared for this matchup. Unfortunately, Lillipup manages to outspeed us and set up Workup right away. Our water gun does about a third, which isn't great because this boss's Oranberry will turn this 3-hit into a 4-hit. We might be able to make that work, but a single tackle does 18 damage, missing our own Oranberry proc. Another tackle will bring us to 4, meaning an Oranberry heal up to 14 won't really do anything. And then they work up again! Attempt 2 is cooked, I'm not gonna lie. After Goddard died again, I checked for the fun of it, and he had 31 special attack IVs. We actually can't get any stronger than that, so we're gonna have to switch some things up. The problem is, even if I skip the mandatory Munna encounter to roll some RNG, like people do with the Route 1 Pidgey in X and Y, or the Pokepath Lechonk in Scarlet and Violet, the other encounters aren't doing me any favors. Drifloon also dies to a bite, and the other available mons don't learn any good moves within the level cap. The same can be said for most of the available random encounters too. Most of the Pokemon on these early routes aren't very interesting. Or good for that matter. Instead, I look a little further into the Dream Radar, and apparently there are 3 secret Pokemon you can guarantee encounters for if you put in a specific button pattern. 2 of these 3 would not help me out at all here, but the special extension A allows for the capture of a Beldum. Of course, the Steel typing helps out against tackles, but the Psychic type negates their Dark resistance, and their only move being Takedown does put a damper on things. Well, beggars can't be choosers. Even though I technically chose Beldum. Let's run it! This time around, we lead with Goddard again, and spend our time spamming Water Gun to take out the Patrat as soon as possible. This time it's a clean 3-hit, and Charon spends his entire time setting up. They weren't quite low enough to proc a potion use, so the first mon goes down with Goddard completely healthy. I 100% want Drumbell the Beldum to check the Lillipup, but the takedown recoil is brutal, so first I'd like to weaken this canine as much as possible. Sharon seems to be hellbent on setting up though, because just like with the rat, his ace immediately begins using workup as well. Water gun doesn't do too much, so I instead begin using Tail Whip in hopes of bypassing their potions and Oranberry uses later on. It doesn't take long for me to begin pushing my luck, however, because as we keep lowering their defenses, Lillipup keeps raising their offenses. I know we should always live one attack, not counting a crit, at least up to a point, but once we lower their defenses to -3 and their attack is raised to +4, I call it. Drumbell makes their debut, and Lillipup keeps going. Again, Bite isn't resisted, so we're nowhere near safe. I was hoping to tag in on a tackle, but I suppose we'll take a similar amount of damage afterwards anyways. On the following turn, they commit and max out their attack stat. What? Their defenses are still low at least, so as long as we land the takedown... You're kidding. This Lillipup could not get any stronger. Its spine is abs and its hamstrings are ropes. I have no idea what our livability looks like, but I do know that our only option is still takedown. This Hellhound from Layer 7 finally attacks with Bite, and we not only managed to survive, but we dodged the flinch and land takedown, which is just enough to get the kill after our earlier tail whips. Drumbell survives the recoil thanks to their Oranberry, and because the P-Dove only has normal type attacks, we're able to quickly take them out, living on 2. Whew, we did it! Wait, is there something on the screen? Let me get that real quick. So, my steel type wasn't enough to carry me on their own. I had to deal with takedown misses, bite flinches, and crits so often leading up to this win, and I was going insane. The other starters wouldn't have helped much because it's not like they're that much stronger than Oshawott or anything like that. I did get real close to committing to get a wild encounter from Flossusy Ranch in hopes of getting a Mareep or something, but I knew that this fight was possible as is. Call me stubborn, but I had to win with these two. Oh, thanks, Charon. I'm actually pretty worked up already, but that's very nice of you. At the very least, my stubbornness will pay off right away. South of Burbank City is the Burbank Complex, where a handful of great Pokemon await. And that's not to mention the Double Grass. I did consider counting the Dark Double Battle Grass as a separate encounter method, but it really is just a fancy random encounter at the end of the day. Now, let's see who we get. Oh, now we're talking. Honestly, as long as I didn't get just a Patrat, I was gonna be happy. I'd honestly prefer the Magby, just for the vibes alone, but Magnemite is good. I attack each side once to see what happens and go from there, and Drumbell crits. Really could have used that energy at the gym. Alright, looks like Ragnit is the random encounter of the run. At least they're not Patrat. In all actuality, Ragnit is probably the best encounter we could have gotten for Roxy, being immune to poison and being able to actually fight back. Safely. I mean, it's not like we were in any dire need of an answer to poison types, but the leeway is nice. This might be a good time to address why my level cap is lower than Roxy's ace, as it was when I was fighting Sharon. Well, the challenge mode doesn't actually increase the boss levels. While trainers have smarter AI and improved items and movesets, they secretly keep the normal mode levels. So that's what we're working with. I think we still technically get the experience points relative to the fake level, but that doesn't really change anything. Castelia. The Big Apricorn. Insomnia City. Gotham. What a location! This place is so nice. Not because they named it twice. They didn't, but because this is the stop for our next encounter. Twice. First things first, we get to explore the sewers. This is what everyone wanted to explore in Legends EA? Maybe I'm the one who's out of touch. After de-escalating some nefarious ne'er-do-well activity, we continue on to the Relic Passage where I get my Phenomenon encounter. If you didn't know, Gen 5 has a mechanic where rarer and oftentimes stronger Pokemon appear in the overworld as rustling grass, dust clouds, rippling water, or shadows. The shadows only house ducklets, so we don't care about those. The rustling grass has Autono most of the time, and I'm not risking that. And I can't swim! This leaves the dust clouds to be our phenomenon of choice, and the encounter pool is limited to only 2 options here. Sorry, Red Shard fans, but this isn't a Pokemon. Yet. Blocking me from the exit, practically telling me to add him to the team, Drillbur appears. It was either this or Onyx, and while I was indoctrinated by the anime to think Onyx is really cool, full the Drillbur is arguably the better option. We sure do have a bunch of steel types, huh? Our other Castelia City encounter comes thanks to the relocation of Fennel's lab? The Dreamworld office? It's the Dreamworld. We're getting the Dreamworld encounter. Unfortunately, there are no ways to properly interact with the Dream World in 2026 as far as I'm aware, so instead I'll just explain this encounter to the best of my ability. The Dream World was a web-based browser game that connected to the Gen 5 Pokémon games to obtain rare items and Pokémon through several minigames. Multiple Dream Worlds were available depending on your game and how far along you were in your journey, and one would randomly be chosen when you went to sleep, but you could shift the odds one way or the other depending on the type of Pokémon you put to sleep. Not that way. In our case, since the water type Goddard gets to snooze, we'll be entering the Sparkling Sea. The other locations either had less reliable Pokémon or too much type overlap for me. Just like how my Pokémon could determine what Dream World we go to, the minigames we play can determine what Pokémon we encounter. I'm eyeballing either Wooper or the Barboach for their typings. I like Barboach's vibes, but the encounter pool from Barboach's minigames aren't quite as consistent as the encounter pool from Wooper's, so we're hunting for Wooper. From here, I don't have much of a way to choose the encounter aside from this. And alright! I actually love Mantine. Not only do the Dream World encounters get their sometimes worse hidden abilities, but they also randomly come with either a level up move, an egg move, or a Dream World specific move. Only one of these is good, but hey, at least we still get Air Slash later on. Now, Full might be the first newcomer of the two, but her time will have to wait. She isn't quite as prepared to handle Berg's bugs as Dantaway is. I may still need Goddard to take out Dwebble first, and we do need to paralyze that Leavanny as well, as it's quite scary. But beyond that, Dantaway proves his worth, not that he needed to, by sweeping the remainder of Berg's team. Of course we had to dodge Grass Whistle a couple of times to make it work, but, I mean, come on, that was pretty likely. And look, Full still gets her time. Colress was awaiting us on Route 4 for our first violent interaction, and Full, well, during the fight, Full was starting to scare me. I planned on keeping up the momentum and heading straight for the Electric Gym, but then I remembered that I have another encounter. Apparently Bianca has really good hearing because she's able to hear it and leads us to the location. Her eyesight leaves a little to be desired though. The Unova sequel games introduced hidden grottos. These secret locations are scattered throughout the region and give access to rare Pokemon and items. And if you can believe it, the Pokemon here have hidden abilities. Sound familiar? The first encounter is always a Minccino with Skill Link, and considering that the likelihood of me getting a better Pokemon, or even a Pokemon at all at another location is pretty small, I'll be picking up Hingrilla for now. Sadly though, Skill Link won't be doing us too many favors until we meet the Moving Learner, and neither will that minus Speed Nature. But I'm gonna choose not to think about it. That usually works out for me. The level cap is only 30, and while this means that Ragnet gets to evolve, Full remains to be a little Jilbur. It isn't quite the same as an evolution, but an Eviolite will be able to cover for that lack of bulk, at least a little bit. That item keeps my Subterranean alive even if she takes a crit, and guarantees her the opportunity to use Rock Tomb on Elisa's lead Emolga. We got Rock Slide at level 29, but it wouldn't kill on its own. I needed to lower their speed first with Rock Tomb, which lets us clean up with Rock Slide the following turn. Rock moves are super inaccurate, so I'm very thankful that Full manages to land them. And I'm even more thankful when Full's Rock Slide flinches the incoming Joltik. We would have lived one Energy Ball again thanks to the Eviolite, but this is perfect because after Elisa wastes a potion and we land the Rock Slide again, Full continues to outspeed and finish off the Spider Tick with Dig. Fafi is also somehow slower than my ground type, and another Dig cleanly eviscerated the health bar in front of me. Thanks to the earlier flinch, Full is healthy enough to stay in on Zebstrika's Stomp and use Dig again. It of course does massive damage, as it's been doing, and manages to proc their Citrus Berry. It may be wise of me to switch now to avoid a crit kill, but Full's been on a roll. We're staying in and going for the sweep. Zebstrika uses Stomp. Alright, new plan. At the end of the day, we always had the evolved Ragnet ready in the back. We may not have many great moves to use on this Zebstrika, but we do have the bulk. A held Citrus Berry allows them to live multiple non-crits and retaliate with 2 clean mirror shots. Unfortunately, the ace does live on 1, so we have to switch, but everything I said about Ragnet can be applied to Drumbell. The Citrus Berry really comes in clutch this time as they switch in on a crit, and we pull through to win our 4th gym badge. As a reward, Full evolves into Excadrill, and we really begin working with power now. Driftveil City has developed a surprising amount in the sequel games, providing the team and I a plethora of resources to work with. These include crucial held items, surprisingly powerful tutor moves, and even more evolutions. Well, I'm only able to get those evolutions by going past Driftveil and into the next routes, but I couldn't have gone past Driftveil without Driftveil being there to begin with. Hey, shout out to Driftveil. Within Route 6, there's a family, and the little girl in that family just gives me a shiny stone. Hingrilla thanks you very much, but you really shouldn't talk to strangers who break and enter. Also, it turns out that Chargestone Cave is available from the get-go. Ragnet leaves their very brief middle stage behind, and that's not all. Throughout Black 2 and White 2, if you activate a memory link by connecting to a copy of the prequels, not only are you able to discover flashbacks involving N, but you can also find his released Pokemon. I actually ran into one earlier in the Desert Resort while using a Repel, and it was very scary. Luckily I escaped without any deaths. Unfortunately that encounter ruled out any events Pokemon from the resort, but I've still got some decent options in Chargestone Cave. Most of them have type overlap with my team, and of course I get his Clink. You really should keep those to yourself, but it's fine. Ent's Pokemon not only have a gleam to them resembling shiny Pokemon, but they also come with 30 IVs across the board. The fact that Clink, who can't be renamed, won't evolve until level 38 and is my 4th Steel type does sort of impede their usage right now, but I think Ent would understand. He knows more about his Clinks than anyone else. I was originally pretty worried about the ground gym, but it turned out that my worries were largely unfounded. Crocrock's Intimidate and Citrus Berry ruined most of my early ideas, but I have someone who doesn't mind either of those. I'm counting on Dantaway, who can always get a kill with Bubble Beam, but because we're slower, Clay is able to attack first, and he only sets the sand. Once Crocorock goes down, Onyx enters the field and uses Rock Polish after surviving a Bubble Beam with Sturdy. Clay aimlessly heals, but now I'm scared of being outsped and hit by Rock Slide. And you know, in hindsight, I probably should have expected an explosion. The Steel type would have lived even a crit! Oops! Sandslash outspeeds my starter even after our mid-battle level up, so Hingrilla finally makes her debut. We have to play around their Home Claws boost a little bit, but Hingrilla simplifies everything by getting his own crit after all. That's what I like to see. From here, the battle's in the bag, because no matter what Clay's Excadrill does, Sturdy lets Ragnet survive anything. Once. Bulldoze is now baited, but follows holding the air balloons, making her immune. She always outspeeds thanks to the opposing boss Pokemon's minus speed nature, and a single dig does the trick. I would have preferred it if I didn't have to switch back and forth every which way in these battles, but a win's a win. And I'm so ready to get another win against Skyla, but we've got to take a slight detour to the Pokemon World Tournament, an insanely cool battle facility that doesn't really shine until the postgame, where you could challenge gym leaders from other regions. I can only dream that this returns in Gen 10, but I think the DLC is its only chance. Also, I'm pretty sure there are more people in this arena than the entire region, by the way. Probably to accommodate players getting used to these back-to-back 3v3s, the levels are tragically forgiving. Battling Hugh, Charon, and Colress in this setting is so cool, but there's absolutely zero challenge. The same can be said for the battles against the Plasma Pirates just south of here. But to their credit, it was also pretty cool. Oh, who's this? Well, I had overlooked another frankly weird encounter method, and only just recently picked them up. You see, the Pokemon Global Link, the same website that enabled the Dream World to work, had other events where you could obtain Pokemon from serial codes, most of which could only be obtained from completing very secretive and technical objectives, such as watching the anime, or going to Walmart. After Black 2 and White 2 released, so too was a National Dex completion guide. This guide came with a code for a Shadow Tag Gothita, meaning this encounter is technically paid DLC. Yeah, I could have gotten a Chimchar with Fake Out even earlier, one of the elemental monkeys with great moves, a Scizor, or a Pseudo-Legend if I waited. But honestly, you guys gotta stop being so mean to Gloth. It's just too bad I won't be using him for our fight against Skyla. Just like Roxy's gym fight, hers can be completely invalidated by Ragnet. I wouldn't say her team is poorly built, she just doesn't have any coverage for steel types. But to be fair, Ragnet just really is that mon. I'm feeling pretty okay about that Magby dying now. Whee! I could have picked up our next encounter already, but to be honest, I was a little scared. This future Elysian is powerful in any level, and even more difficult to capture. There was no rush before, as their coverage wouldn't have really helped with anything, but now feels like a good time. We could only enter this part of the game in the post-game previously, but the opening of the Relic Passage from the Pokemon World Tournament gives us easy access to Volcarona. This Pokemon will be counted as my overworld encounter, such as Snorlax, or Snorlax. You might be thinking that Hingrilla was also an overworld encounter, but, actually, he was inside a grotto. I hope Ovenwad likes purple. Yeah, I didn't even plan for this, but apparently Professor Juniper just gives the player a Master Ball for seeing 60 Pokemon. I did it, I guess. Even back when I played these games for the first time, I thought this diversion from the original game's journey was pretty cool. Actually using this airport, with a greenhouse at the end of the runway, to get to a new part of the region with fresh and new biomes is always a treat. Not to mention the music too. On the other hand, while I understand the migration of Pokemon to the region, I know these cities did not migrate here. Is it ever explained why we couldn't access these areas before? The games are for sure better off with new places, but now I'm left wondering what other canon locations are just out of reach. The path through Reversal Mountain is a straight shot with only a couple of precarious battles, both of which are easily handled by our wondrous Goddard. whose absence would have made these battles insanely scary. Shortly after in Undella Town, Hugh challenges us to a proper battle for the first time since... Flossissy Ranch? Once I got past his Unpheasant's Flinch and Detect shenanigans, each and every one of his Pokemon got rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, I know basic type matchups. I make Pokemon videos in my free time, what can I say? Oh, right, Cobalion. I ran into this guy earlier and contemplated him being my static overworld encounter, but it is another steel type. Speaking of steel types, I attempt to let En's Clank shine in the double battle against Zinzalin and some grunt in Lacunosa Town. They struggle to land Gear Grinds at first, but lock in shortly after. Gear Grind is pretty much the only good attack this Pokemon learns, so it's best that we get good with it now. And that practice might come in handy sooner than later, because steel types are amazing against dragons. Mostly because they resist dragons types. Drumbell is among the best to showcase that with their new evolution. Their typing and tutor move Ice Punch are an amazing combo, one that even Drayden's Druddigon can't break through. Altaria is even more vulnerable to my supercomputer, but he outspeeds and knows Fire Blast, though I probably should have suspected that they'd use Cotton Guard when Dantaway tagged in. No matter though, Icy Wind is yet another tutor move that pulls a lot of weight. It has a chance to miss, but we can afford it with Dantaway's special bulk. However, we don't have that luxury with Goddard. That's why he's got a little accuracy boost from the wide lens to make sure his Icy Winds land. This attack makes sure Flygon goes second from now on, and we waste their Hyper Potion. Goddard soon takes out Flygon without taking any more damage. When Haxorus enters the field, we've got a completely safe switch back to Drumbell, who gets Dragon-tailed and forces Goddard back. I see what you're doing here, Drayden. Okay, I'll switch to Clang. Their Eviolite pushes their defenses even beyond Drumbell's, and this time they set up. You know what, that's actually fine. Clang is so bulky that even after Dragon Dance number 2 is used, we can safely Thunder Wave and begin attacking. Because none of their moves even come close to taking us out, amidst his paralysis, Haxorus continues to attempt setting up. It isn't until their third Dragon Dance that they outspeed again, thanks to the para, but they mistakenly use the negative priority Dragon Tail and allow Clank to grind her last gear without missing once. With that explosive victory, Clank finds the energy to reach their final form. But honestly, I like the Eviolite usage. You could stay the way you are, little buddy. Oh my goodness! I haven't played these games in a very long time, and I remembered this scene, but actually seeing it again has reminded me how insane Team Plasma got in the sequels. Capturing legendary Pokemon and making them use their own powers for evil is one thing, but turning Kyurem into a big gun and actually using it is crazy. I know they're doing it from a giant airship, but somehow this feels more tangible than a lot of other Evil Team climaxes. If only their Pokemon reflected that. I'm pretty sure Game Freak planned sequels from the very beginning, but I don't think they planned its execution. If they did, they probably would have added better ice types in Gen 5. The battle against the Shadow Triad guy was a nice touch though. I didn't even think he owned any Pokemon. Anyways, moving on I guess. Humalao City is our next stop, and when I was planning this run out, this is where I was going to pick up the next encounter. The in-game trade. Tangle's the Tangrowth is offered up here, and the team could really use a decent grass type. What I didn't consider was that this guy is asking for a Mantine in return. Normally I would just capture one and call it a day. I feel like trading away Dantaway would be the only valid way to obtain Tangles in this scenario, and I don't want to do it. Only 2 other in-game trades are available, and I don't think the Gigalith from Route 7 is going to do us any favors. So we're returning to Route 4 to trade a Cottony for Petulia the Petilil. What a pretty name! Looking back, if I had picked her up when this part of Route 4 was available, Petulia probably would have made my life a lot easier against Clay. I mean, we didn't have any real complications or anything, but a simplified version of that fight would have been nice. To be honest though, a fast special attacking grass type is probably way better in a game like this. Thanks to the EVs I grinded, Wailord is as good as gone in this phenomenal start against the final gym leader. Predictably, Mantine comes out next, and their Air Slash is going to do way more to us than we are to them. So this is the perfect time to bring back Kingrilla. Woo! Sure, Ragnet would have been way more consistent here, but I really want to make Kingrilla work. Unfortunately, it's a Confusory that they switch in on, and we didn't come equipped with a Prism Berry. To be fair, I wasn't expecting it, but also I wanted to boost Rock Blast's accuracy, which pays off as Kingrilla claims the Skill Link propelled knockout as planned. And we've taken 0 damage. This is going surprisingly well. Marlon sends out his sturdy Caracosta next, which is perfect because our Bullet Seed is the best answer for him. The only thing is that their held Citrus Berry might heal them enough for us to miss out on the kill, and we also have to worry about the confusion hits. Okay, because of the sturdy, it's still in our best interest to stay in. Switching someone else in on an attack and taking 1 to 2 hits depending on our speed tier isn't an option right now, so Hingrilla needs to land the Bullet Seed now. But he dodges Rock Slide! Alright, little guy, now's your chance. Clutch it up, save your own life, and keep this a deathless run. Well, I tried. The Minccino line is Gen 5's equivalent to Apom for me, so I really wanted Hingrilla to do something. Rest in Poké Dollars, little buddy. Petulia sweeps from there with the help of Giga Drain recovery and her ability to dodge crits, but that doesn't stop the victory from feeling so sour. I've been making videos on this channel for almost 2 years now, and I have yet to beat a Nuzlocke without any deaths. I mean, it's not like I've been sweating each run for 40 hours straight or anything, but there are so many times that I get close enough to start wanting it and then fail. In hindsight, I could have just given Ragnit a Prism Berry and gone from there. And maybe I should have, but I feel like I also owe it to the run to use every Pokemon I have. Well, Black 2's difficulty skyrockets from here onward, so maybe my little Grotto gamer sacrificed his life in order to lock me in. Yeah, he sacrificed himself. The lock-in effect must be slow rolling though, because I made it all the way through Seaside Cave only to remember that I had to visit Route 23 first. Whoops. Well, at least after I get the special item from Colress. Oh, hi, Terrakion. I worked my way back to where I was, and this time I didn't have to battle anyone. Dang it! And you know what? Marlin really is a weird character. I get the gist of what he means when he says he's not educated enough to declare Team Plasma as super evil, but like, this dialogue would have only worked in base Black and White. He literally mentions their terror attack on Opelousas City. Marlin heard about Team Plasma freezing over a city and was like, live your truth. Hugh and I begin our second raid on the Plasma Frigate, and before we can continue on to the deepest part of the ship, we need to find the switches for this electrical wall. And by we, I mean me. I somehow managed to find 3 of the 4 switches right away without battling anyone. But what do you know? On my search for the last one, I battled just about everybody. Anyways, we finally proceed, and Zinzalin reveals that Kyurem was powering their weapon the whole time. Whoops, I guess I spoiled that earlier. Again, we battle, and it isn't very challenging with Drumbell's help. Actually, since we're here, I understand that there's just some grunt on standby to allow these double battles with Hugh to happen, but if he was gonna show up so much, why didn't they just use another one of the 7 sages? There could have been really cool dialogue with 2 sages bouncing off each other. Black and White 3, 2028 will be your year. After we win yet again, we're teleported out as the ship makes its grand escape. Until I find him again. Dude, more locks too? I just did that! And apparently this good guy, undercover ex-Team Plasma grunt, knows the password and won't tell me for some reason. Why would they put that in? Once I got the access card, I just looked up the answer. Apparently it could be like a dozen different things, but I eventually got it. After that, there's another battle against Zinzalin, and you'll never believe how that went. And I hate to say it, but the final battle against Chloris was pretty similar. Well, I lied, I don't hate to say it. Because while this battle was won without any deaths, we were in range of a crit just about the entire time. I was also worried because Full got a special defense drop, meaning he couldn't exactly sweep like I planned. The Kling Klang is fast and holding the air balloon, so I switched to Novenwad. This thing kept setting up shift gear, which is like a stronger Dragon Dance, and if we had missed Heat Wave, then I might have actually gotten swept. But I didn't. But I started relaxing way too early, because apparently there was a bonus fight against another Shadow Triad guy. I did not heal, and in my pivoting, he was able to set up 3 Swords Dances on his Absol. It didn't help that Klang missed an earlier gear grind, but they made up for it with their Thunder Wave. A crit would kill even my Eviolated buddy now, but they clutch it up. And I didn't even plan this out, but I am so glad that I'm playing Black 2 instead of White 2. Happy Black History Month, everybody. If Kyurem White was my next boss, then my team of mostly Steel types wouldn't be able to do much. And would you believe me if I said I forgot about this fight until the last second? I spent a lot of time absorbed in planning for Ghetsis, but luckily I didn't have to change much anyways, with my intended lead in Ragnit being great against Kyurem as well. Big guy hardly broke a sweat. And when it came to Ghetsis' lead Cofagrigus, it wasn't too different. The leftovers prevented even our high rolls from two-shotting the reason Runerigus exists, but with our resistances and immunity to Toxic, we could have kept this up all day. Sasmatode comes out next to use an Earthquake that I predicted last week, and Petulia is obviously a great answer and can replenish all the damage taken with Giga Drain. The problem is that she baits out Electros, and this guy's actually pretty scary in a playthrough. I can't one-shot it due to Levitate, and I'd very much like to because he has coverage for the whole team. I figured that since Petulia could live any non-crit, and because I don't know if they're going for Flamethrower or a boosted Acrobatics, I can roll the dice and call out Sleep Powder, which Petulia lands! See, she isn't just a Giga Drain one-trick. Electros is taken out, which brings in Drapion next. Goddard is somehow bulky enough to out-brawn this match normally, but Drapion still has the sniper ability in the back that we need to worry about. The 4-foot-tall Ogre Scorpion outspeeds my starter and has already gotten 2 hits on him. If the next high crit chance Night Slash crits, it'll do 3 times the damage and that'll be that. But Goddard toughs it out and retaliates with a KO. Normally Ghetsis' Hydreigon is the scariest by far, but with a hint of dramatic irony, En's Eviolighted Clang is somehow the perfect counter. This ace doesn't quite have the coverage it used to, and part of that is due to its frustration. Well, what do you know? The Thunder Wave goes a long way, and our first gear grind even crits! With a Life Orb chip also withering away the 3-headed dragon, Clang can finish them off with a Volt Switch and prepare Gloth for the final mon. Toxicroak's scarier moves are Shadow Ball and Sucker Punch, and while our charms would weaken Sucker Punch while making it fail, we're only ever dead to a crit either way. 10 toes down, or whatever Gloth has, and he tanks the Sucker Punch like a champ. One last Psychic is all that it takes, winning us our final Team Plasma fight of the game. Man, those were really backloaded, huh? It isn't a long trek before we can finally take on Unova's complete, uninterrupted Elite Four. But before we do, I just gotta say, this is probably a top 1 victory road. The variety in environments and trainer teams is unmatched by any other game, but some do get close. Black 2 and White 2 really are the ultimate versions of the classic Pokemon formula. It's just too bad that's exactly what makes them struggle to stand out. When you think of classic Pokemon games, I feel like the first 4 gens are always more likely to come up in conversation first. I will say though, Hugh's final battle is underwhelming overall. His team has been very basic for the entire run for seemingly no reason, so I anticipated being able to breeze past him. But he does have one new Pokemon that can be troublesome. And after Arachnid takes down Unpheasant, that very Pokemon appears. Mouflon has great coverage and an intimidating attack stat to boot. Many of my Pokemon can't live 2 hits, but we can outspeed. I pivot with Manta Ray to evade the Earthquake and switch to Full to absorb the Wild Charge. Full has the power and bulk to end this matchup with 2 of his own Earthquakes, though if we get 2 low rolls in a row, we might not cut it. But despairingly, we won't be able to follow up on our high roll, because we were always in crit kill range, and Hugh managed to capitalize. And the worst part is, it only occurred to me after the battle that I still had the air balloons in my bag. I didn't have to risk the crit, but I've resulted in doing so much in this run that it just became my default. Like the others, Full was a star of the run. It's devastating to see another Mon fall so close to the end, and now we've got to live with it. Well, live without it. Him. The rest of Hugh's battle isn't very difficult at all, so we march on forward to the Unova Pokemon League. Somehow I haven't fought this version of the Elite Four in years. Even with all of the replaying I do of Pokemon games, the black and white sequels usually end up on the back burner. Heck, I've probably replayed Legends Arceus more than I've replayed these games. With some planning that took way longer than I anticipated, I've concluded that it would be best to bring Goddard, my starter who can contribute in almost any situation, Drumbell, who lacks nothing in the physical department, with a hint of support, Ragnant, an all-star player who plans on continuing their run here, Dantaway, the Pokemon from my dreams with a great niche for the upcoming fights, Gloth, a severely underutilized Mon that'll do everything he can to make up for that, and Ovenwad, one of my favorite Unovan Pokemon, even aside from the design, which will be put on full display soon. I'm fully aware of what we're getting ourselves into, but this team has come from all walks of life, and that's exactly the thing that'll give us the strength to win. In the style of classic Pokemon, RNG will play a factor in our success. It's not the main factor, but it's there, lurking in the shadows. Usually Marshall's fight is saved for last due to his huge threats, but right now we need those experience points for another fight. And Drumbell gets our first Elite Four EXP by landing the Twisted Spoon boosted Zen Headbutt, and getting the high roll. Ovumwad is siphoning some of the experience points with the EXP share, which is important for later. Presumably Conkeldurr takes the field to retaliate hard with an Earthquake, but because his Flame Orb hasn't activated his Guts ability yet, he first uses Bulk Up as Gloth enters. I could have predicted that and used Zen Headbutt again, but with that move's lower accuracy, Gloth was always more reliable. Not to mention he dodged the Stone Edge? Maybe RNG isn't so bad after all. A couple Psychics and a full restore later, and Marshall's ace is exterminated. Dantaway has a similarly good matchup into the special attacking Lucario, but like the Mon before him, Lucario sets up Calm Mind. This makes things a little scarier for my Jotonian Mantike, because we don't necessarily have a great move to hit him with. Things got close, but our leftovers recovery keep Dantaway just healthy enough to outperform Gen 4's main character. We could have protected to stall more leftovers recovery, making sure things didn't cut us close, but I didn't want to risk protecting on another Calm Mind or anything like that. I had hoped Goddard would be a better check for Sock, and to his credit, he does live 2 hits in the yellow. But on its own, Scald just isn't enough to kill. Unless it burns! That happens so infrequently that I don't even count on it anymore. Great job, Goddard! And last is Mian Xiao, but Ragnet's sturdy means that nothing can kill them in 1 hit. We then protect to make their next high jump kick crash, but they randomly use bounce instead. Huh. Well, we have to steer a little bit, but Gloth is still at full. With that, and a lack of paralysis from bounce in mind, finishing the fight with 1 last psychic is almost too little of an ask. That's 1 Elite 4 member down. In our second battle, this time against Grimsley, Ragnet won't be able to clutch things up with their sturdy due to the faster Liepard. She isn't stronger though, so before long, she goes down and Crocodile takes her place. But with an amazing Earthquake immunity, Dantaway can safely come in and take her out too. I removed the leftovers earlier, but forgot to equip the Mystical Water, so Scald isn't a guaranteed Oko anymore. But just like Goddard, Dantaway got the burn. Am I using all my luck now? Am I gonna die soon? Scrafty went down in a similar manner after a conjoined effort between Dantaway and Goddard himself. Ovenwad dodged a super luck crit that surely would have killed her before taking out the Absol with a single Signal Beam, which happens to level her up and give us access to Quiver Dance, and the Bisharp stood no chance in surviving my Overworld Sun God's Flamethrower. It was imperative that we acquired Quiver Dance during this gauntlet, because breaking through Caitlyn's incredibly bulky team of Psychic types without it would have been way too much trouble. Not to mention the plentiful opportunities for RNG to come into play. With the hope of avoiding a drawn-out battle, Ovenwad uses Quiver Dance right away and holds a Chesto Berry in case Musharna lands a Hypnosis first. But while we set up, they just use Reflect, and gun to my head, I could not tell you why. 1 boost is all my semi-pseudo-legendary needs to sweep Caitlyn's entire team. Signal Beam and Flamethrower are a phenomenal combination of moves. We won't be doing anything quite as flashy against Chantel, but our battle with her is still just as manageable. I'm leading with Ovenwad again, not only due to her damage output, but so that I don't have to hold a Rossberry to deal with the Will-O-Wisps. Chandelure is extra scary with her Choice Scarf, but because the AI seldom switches, Dantaway is safe to withstand the predicted Fire Blast, not once, but twice. We didn't forget the Mystic Water this time, so a single Scald is enough to eradicate them. It's the same for Ragnet versus the Driflim, Goddard versus the Golurk, and Drumbell versus the Bayonet. Man, Steel Resisting Ghost and Dark in this game is so nice. But that buff won't be quite as prevalent against Unova's newest champion, Iris. These games have been hyped up a bunch in recent years, but I find that their details are left out of many conversations. However, one idea that's squeezed past all the noise is that Champion Iris on Challenge Mode is among the strongest champions in Pokemon, and is very possibly up there with Leon and Cynthia. But I won't let that get to me, because nothing has changed in our plan to win. To prove that she's no slouch, Iris leads with a Pokemon that's only ever been seen as Ghetsis' ace until now. If it weren't for our Ovenwad's Silver Powder boosted Signal Beam, this mod would cause massive problems for me, but that fortunately isn't the case. Aggron is next, and without a doubt planning on using Head Smash. That would kill my Firebug 4 times over and then some. Drumbell instead takes the hit, a little worse than I had hoped, but we retaliate with a Bulldoze that lowers Aggron's speed. She survives, so an Auto Demise is set up, taking her speed stat from -1 to +1. Now the armored Triceratops can outspeed us and wants to use Earthquake, but thankfully, Ovenwad's U-turn helped Bulldoze put them in heal range, meaning we get to lower their speed with a second Bulldoze and take them out with a third. The Dragon Dance shenanigans that come from Haxers is a problem. Drumbell isn't in kill range at the moment, so they may set up, but Ice Punch doesn't kill from this range. I'd like to do damage, but playing it safe and lowering their speed with Bulldoze is the smarter play. It turns out Iris wanted to go for the crit, but she doesn't get it. From the yellow, Drumbell lands Bulldoze. Unfortunately, Haxorus still barely outspeeds us, so I need to switch to Dantaway on the immune Earthquake. Now this little fella does somehow outspeed after a Bulldoze, and safely gets a kill with Ice Beam. Lapras comes in with the hope of landing a Thunder, but can't even do that when I send out Ragnet. These two then trade some blows, and with a last-ditch Hail Mary, of course Lapras somehow lands the 55% accurate Sing. But did you really think we weren't prepared? Our Chesto Berry wakes up Ragnet to finish her off. Volt Switch then gets some free and easy chip damage on Dredagon to make way for Goddard to enter and get a free and easy kill with Ice Beam. Iris is down to 1 Pokemon, and what do you know? From the green, Ragnet resists everything they could throw at us. Stone Edge does have a high crit chance, doesn't it? Things were going so smoothly, but now both my steel types aren't in any position to clutch up. If I could get Drum Bell on the field for free, then Bullet Punch would at least put the Prehistoric Avian in defeatist range. But that can't happen without sacrificing somebody. We've come so far and have already lost 2 teammates. I won't let any more go down. Instead, I switch in the incredibly bulky Gloth. Archeops goes for a random move since Ragnar was so low, and thankfully that move was Dragon Claw. That move is his weakest, and now Gloth can set us up. The leftovers are held and utilized with Protect to get the maximum amount of recovery each turn. This takes Gloth out of any non-crit kill range, meaning that we get set up not only Reflect, but the Thunder Wave on our off turns. I didn't even plan on using Gloth and made these moveset changes last minute, but that might be the exact thing that wins us this fight. Even though they're low, Drumbell returns to the fight with Reflect guaranteeing their survival. But thanks to the paralysis, we don't even have to worry about a crit. There's no need to use Bullet Punch to put Archeops in defeatist range anymore. Simply using a single Ice Punch is enough to obliterate the bird, winning us the fight against Champion Iris, the Unovan Elite Four, and the entire game. Yeah, these games still got it. I do think they're missing some of their own in-game cultural identity that can be found in later games, but functionally, they're still a blast. It does kind of suck to think back on the only 2 deaths we got in the run and how preventable they were, but it is what it is. Deathless Run Inbound 2026, trust me guys. If you made it here all the way to the end, then I just want to say thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video today, then please consider liking, subscribing, and dropping a hype if you're on mobile. It helps out a lot. And what game would you like to see all the encounter methods in next? Should I play through the post-game of Black 2 to get the rest of the encounters? Or would you prefer seeing something like Heart Gold? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you again so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time, and have a good one.